Now, putting all these things together, I would like to know, you see, first of all, what was the reason of his being born without a parent father? And second, after his advent, why he was not polite about that to his people, so that you see, his acceptance by others could have been made more easier and pleasant.
This is the same objection as raised against the Islam by the present opponents to Muslim. And they say he is very sharp of tongue, he is short-tempered, and he indulges in invectives against us and calls us bad names. And number one, the similarities between first Masih and the second Masih continue to be the same, even in this respect. It was alleged against him as well as it was alleged against Hazrat Masih Maud. Now, you are in a better position to justify the first Messiah's behavior in the light of your knowledge of Hazrat Masih Maud's character. They pick a few things out of context and thereby try to prove that Hazrat Masih Maud was very harsh of temper, and their books are blackened with these allegations. While you know as an Ahmadi, you having read Hazrat Masih Maud's literature and having known his biography, you know that he was exactly the opposite. Yet at times he had to lash at others. And those are the times, knowing the background, now we can assess that those are the times when the enemy would not understand any other language. He deserved it very much. He earned it so much that ultimately he got that harsh treatment from a man who was the mildest of heart. This is exactly true of the old Messiah. You know the present day Ghulam, but you don't know the old day Jewish rabbi. If you project yourself into the language of the present day mullah and the false allegations and continuous barrage of lies, unending barrage of lies against Ahmadis and against Ahmadiyyah and Hazrat Masih Maud, consciously and knowingly, times come when it is impossible not to hit back in the same coin, just to give them a taste of what they are doing. We can't tell lies, but we can be firm in our answer and retort, and our retort sometimes can be biting, because that is the only vent available to us. So this is why you do not understand the Khalifa of the first Messiah, because you are not applying his situation to the situation of Hazrat Masih Maud. While you should have been in a position to understand and judge his behavior much better than anybody else. Number one. Number two, why there were other tribes who appeared to be so hard. The same thing is applicable again in this situation. Hazrat Masih Maud was born like an ordinary person, and it was told to the Muslims that he would descend, yanzilu. Apparently, literally speaking, it means descend. So they are also put to a very hard trial. It was said that he would descend on a minaret which would be white in color and which would be situated on the east of Damascus. Why he never appeared there? So they are all parables. Somebody else spoke in parables and made the life, made the possibility of the present day Muslims to believe in the Messiah a very remote possibility. Because of those parables, because of this these words like descent and so on. Why was it made difficult for the present-day Muslims? The fact is that whenever a prophet comes, his acceptance is always made difficult, and Masih is no exception. Which prophet came before him who was readily accepted? In the way of those prophets and the people whom he addressed, what was the difficulty? The fact is that people to whom prophets come, they are in a frame of mind which prefers to reject rather than accept truth. They are a rejected people themselves. They have a distorted thinking. So even if things are not made difficult for them, they will themselves make the things very difficult for themselves. So as far as the constant is concerned, this is the constant. That the relationship between the coming of the Prophet and his rejection has always been the same. This is the constant which never changed at the time of Messiah. To think that prophets came with such arguments as were overwhelming for others, and some prophets were given better arguments and some were less arguments, some were given easier situation and some more difficult situation. It is just a conjecture. Now turn the table and begin to visualize the situation of Messiah from another aspect. You will also find that Messiah is given, according to the same testimony, such power as apparently no prophet before him was given. He raises the people from the dead. He cures the lepers and born lepers for that matter. He takes some clay into his hand and makes birds out of that clay, and they begin to fly. Now, if you take everything literally, one should take these things also literally. So on the one hand, he is deprived of certain advantages. On the other hand, he is known to have gained so strong advantages over the rest of the prophets before him that the balance, if at all, is in favor of Messiah. Yet he is rejected. The fact is, and this should be understood, it is the people who are rejected first by Allah. And it is the rejected people who reject Allah's messages. Whatever be the situation of that time and age, whether the arguments are strong or weak, it is neither here nor there. He will be rejected. This is the first law, and it has always held good in the light of history. Now, as far as these miracles, so-called miracles, are concerned, today the ulama are demanding miracles from Hazrat Muslim, and there are so many here who speak so violently against Ahmediyya, and sometimes claim, even in nearby Chennai, that if Hazrat Masih Maud had shown a single sign, they would have been the first to accept him. But he has not shown a single sign in his favor. So it is the signs which they demand. Now in the first instance when we are discussing his similarities to Messiah, I quoted different examples. Now I will illustrate this situation in view of Hazrat Rasul Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's history, life history, and in relationship to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam was also Ahmadi. So the same sort of allegations which are raised against him have been raised against all those who have some similarity to him, some closeness, some relationship. So in the respect of, in the in his position as Mahdi, he is to be judged by the conduct of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also, his enemies are to be judged in the light of the enemy, or the conduct of the enemies of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now I make the point further clear after this introduction. Now, Hazrat Muslim the opponents say that previous prophets showed so many signs and wrought so many miracles, and you have not shown a single sign. And this is exactly what is found in the Holy Quran as an allegation against Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Holy Quran tells us, وَأَقْسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ جَهْدَ أَيْمَانِهِمْ لَئِنْ جَاءَتْهُمْ آيَةٌ لَيُؤْمِنُنَّ بِهَا قُلْ إِنَّمَا الْآيَاتُ عِندَ اللَّهِ وَمَا يُشْعِرُكُمْ أَنَّهَا إِذَا جَاءَتْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. These enemies of yours, those who have rejected you, they say that if you come out with a single sign, we will believe. And they swear by Allah in the strongest terms. أَقْسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ جَهْدَ أَيْمَانِهِمْ. They swear by Allah in the strongest possible terms that, oh Muhammad, if you show us a single sign, we are going to accept. Now one can ask these mullahs that you are saying the same thing to Muslim and you say that so many signs were shown to the enemies of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Holy Quran says that as far as the enemies were concerned, they couldn't see a single sign. As far as their eyes were concerned, like your eyes, they were demanding that so long has passed between debating the issue between you and us, and yet we have not come out with a single sign. But the Holy Quran continues to throw light on the philosophy of this attitude. And it says, وَمَا يُشْرِكُمْ قُلْ إِنَّمَا الْآيَاتُ عِندَ اللَّهِ. O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, tell them that Allah is full of signs. There is no paucity of signs with Allah. وَمَا يُشْرِكُمْ. But what can make you understand? أَنَّهَا إِذَا جَاءَتْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. If all the signs which Allah has come, you will not believe. So, the fact is, as I told you, now I am going to connect it with the my first statement, that the people who reject a prophet are in a state of mind that regardless of the fact that they are shown any signs or otherwise, they will not believe. So, when you go back and consider the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now in the backlight industry you see so many signs. But those who were closer to those signs, they were blinded and they couldn't see. Now to further extend your imagination back into the history of prophets and tell me which are the people who accepted a prophet through signs. Quote a single instance. Moses showed 9 signs and glaring signs, glittering signs to Pharaoh and his people, and they kept on rejecting. Now you look back, you see wonderful signs and how blind they were, how could not they accept them. But those who were passing through that time, they were blinded. No prophet who is mentioned in the Holy Quran to have brought some signs or miracles is declared by the Holy Quran to have been accepted on the strength of such signs and miracles. Not a single instance can be quoted from the Holy Quran. So these things repeat themselves. So coming back to your question, the whole thing which I have explained applies to the fundamentals of your question. to say that poor Messiah was ill-treated and his situation was made difficult for the Jews, or to say that the Jews were ill-treated and they were not provided with enough signs for them to believe in that Messiah, is proved to be a wrong assessment of the situation in the light of the history of prophets. Because whether they bring signs or not, whether things are made easy for the people or not, they do reject. And their previous conduct and their behavior and their treatment of their fellow being and their hard-heartedness and their continuous habit of usurping others' rights and to tell lies and to commit all sorts of sins, these are the facts which already are responsible for the evil. Once such people who indulge in these follies mature in their follies, that is the time for a prophet to come and to warn. So the very few among them who are pious, who are exceptions, they begin to accept, and the process of polarization begins. And ultimately, sometimes with very severe signs from Allah, which shake the whole nation, they begin to believe, and sometimes generations after, from the time of the Prophet, they ultimately succumb to repeated signs and will of Allah, decree of Allah. But Jews were not ill-treated, that is the point. They had been committing such sins and such evils before Messiah came, that for such hard-hearted people, everything was difficult to believe. This is why the Holy Quran goes on saying that you are the people who have been rejecting prophets before. You are the people who murdered prophets before, who opposed them tooth and nail, tried your best to destroy their message. So this is the language addressed to those among whom Christ had come. You understand, or there is still something left?
Very small question.
Please. On the same issue or some other issue?
No, the same subject.
Please.
I don't understand. You'd like me to believe the denial of the Jews of Jesus Christ was preordained?
Huh?
Was preordained?
No, I never said that. That is what it is. If I really understand this, I never said that. If the word preordained is applicable to their own act, not to the will of God, then perhaps you are right. This is what I was saying. What I have been trying to explain is this, that their past acts of evil and their hard-heartedness had pre-written their fate and had doomed them for that state of rejection in which the unfortunate people of the times of Prophet are found. Not Allah's decree, but their own acts culminating into a state which is ripe for rejection and for nothing else. This is what the Holy Quran has been saying and telling us. A decree from Allah or predestined in the sense that Allah had already decreed long before that they would be rejected, they would be destroyed, and they are bound to reject, and they have no other choice. This is wrong. This is never decreed by Allah. Yes, please.